Kang Do-hyun sat alone in his small ship, watching the stars pass by through the dirty window. He had been flying through the outer rim of the galaxy for 3 years now. Earth was far behind him. Sometimes he forgot what it looked like. He was a mercenary, a soldier for hire. He took jobs that other people did not want. He protected cargo ships. He hunted criminals. He did whatever paid enough to keep his ship running and food in his stomach. Humans were new to the galaxy. Only 200 years ago, they had discovered how to travel between stars. The other species had been doing it for thousands of years. They looked at humans the way adults look at small children. Cute, maybe, but not important. Not worth their time. Do-hyun had learned to ignore the looks, the whispers, the way aliens would step aside when he walked past, as if being human was a disease they might catch. His ship was old. It made strange noises when it flew. The weapons were outdated, but it was his, and it kept him alive. That was enough. The distress signal came through just after midnight, ship time. Do-hyun almost ignored it. Distress signals in the outer rim were usually traps. Pirates would fake emergencies to lure in ships, then rob them or worse. But something made him check the signal anyway. When he saw the source, his heart nearly stopped. It was a Valorian royal shuttle. The Valorians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been building empires when humans were still living in caves. They were tall and beautiful, with silver blood and skin that seemed to glow from within. They lived for hundreds of years. Some of them, thousands. They never asked for help, especially not from humans. Do-hyun changed course and pushed his engines as hard as they would go. When he arrived, he saw the shuttle surrounded by 5 Cathari raider ships. The Cathari were insect-like creatures, cruel and hungry for wealth. They attacked anyone they thought they could beat. The shuttle was burning. Parts of it floated in space like broken bones. Do-hyun should have turned around. His ship was half the size of even the smallest raider. His weapons were old. The smart thing to do was to send a message to the nearest station and hope someone else would come, but there might not be time for that. Whoever was on that shuttle might be dead before help arrived. Do-hyun stopped thinking and started flying. His ship dove into the middle of the raiders like an angry wasp. He fired everything he had. The first raider exploded before they even knew he was there. The second turned to face him, and he flew straight at it, firing until the last second before pulling away. It crashed into the third raider. The Cathari were screaming at each other over their radios. Do-hyun could not understand their language, but he knew panic when he heard it. 2 raiders left. They were bigger than him, stronger, but Do-hyun had been fighting since he was 18 years old. He knew tricks that the raiders had never seen. He led them toward a small asteroid field. The rocks were not big enough to hide behind, but they were big enough to cause problems. The first raider tried to follow him through. It clipped a rock and spun out of control. Do-hyun turned and finished it with 3 shots. The last raider ran. Do-hyun let it go. He did not have time to chase it. He docked with the burning shuttle. The air inside was full of smoke. He could barely breathe. He tied a piece of cloth over his mouth and nose and kept moving. He found her in the back of the shuttle, trapped under a fallen beam. She was young, maybe the equivalent of a human in their 20s, though with Valorians you could never really tell. Her silver blood was everywhere. Her eyes were closed, but she was breathing. Do-hyun tried to lift the beam. It was too heavy. He tried again. His muscles screamed. Something in his back tore. He ignored it and kept pulling. The beam moved. Just a little. Just enough. He dragged her out and carried her to his ship. She weighed almost nothing. Or maybe he was too full of adrenaline to notice Dot behind him. The shuttle exploded. The force of it threw him forward. He covered her body with his own and felt hot metal cut into his back, his arms, his legs. He did not stop. He kept crawling, kept dragging her, until they were inside his ship. The door closed behind them. Only then did he let himself feel the pain. There was blood everywhere. His blood, red and human. Her blood, silver and strange. Mixed together on the floor of his ship, he stumbled to the pilot's seat and set a course for the nearest Valorian outpost. Then he went back to her and tried to stop her bleeding with whatever he could find. She woke up once, just for a moment. Her eyes were the color of deep water. Why? She whispered. Her voice was like music, even broken with pain. You could have died. Do-hyun thought about the question. It was a good question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the years. Probably, he said. Did not, though. She closed her eyes again. Do-hyun flew through the night, bleeding from 14 different wounds. His vision went dark around the edges. His hands shook on the controls. Twice, he almost passed out, but he did not stop. He did not give up. He was human, and humans were stubborn. It was maybe the only thing they were good at. When he finally reached the outpost, he opened the door, pointed at the princess, and said, "She needs help." Then he collapsed. The last thing he saw was Valorian faces looking down at him with something he had never seen before in Alien. Eyes when they looked at a human, surprise, and maybe, just maybe, respect. Do-hyun woke up in a bed that was too soft. The ceiling above him was made of something that looked like crystal. Light came through it in gentle waves, like sunlight through water. He tried to sit up. His body screamed at him to stop. He ignored it and sat up anyway. A Valorian physician stood nearby, watching him with cold curiosity. She was tall and thin, with silver hair that floated around her head like she was underwater. "You should not be awake," she said. "You lost too much blood. Your organs began to fail. By all logic, you should be dead." "I get that a lot," Do-hyun said. His voice was rough. "Where is she?" "The princess? Princess Yuna is safe. Because of you." The physician paused. "Word of what you did has reached the queen." Do-hyun felt something cold in his stomach. "The queen?" "Queen Sora. She rules the Valorian Empire. She has ruled for over 800 years. She wishes to see you." This was bad. Do-hyun had survived by staying invisible, by being nobody. Queens did not summon nobodies unless something had gone very wrong. "And if I say no?" The physician almost smiled. Almost. "You do not say no to the queen." 3 days later, Do-hyun stood on the throne world of the Valorian Empire. He had never seen anything like it. The cities were made of crystal and light. The air smelled like flowers he could not name. Everything was beautiful in a way that made him feel dirty and small. They put chains on his wrists before they brought him to the palace. Not because he was a prisoner, they explained. It was protocol. Humans were not allowed to carry weapons in the queen's presence. The chains were a symbol that he came in peace. Do-hyun did not feel peaceful. The throne room was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. The ceiling was so high he could not see it. Thousands of Valorians stood along the walls, watching him with their deep water eyes. And at the far end, on a throne made of something that looked like frozen starlight, sat the queen. Queen Sora was beautiful, but it was a terrible beauty, like a storm or a wildfire. Her hair was white as snow. Her eyes were silver, bright and sharp as knives. She looked young, but Do-hyun could feel the weight of her years pressing down on him, like a physical force. She had seen civilizations rise and fall. She had watched stars die, and now she was looking at him. Do-hyun walked forward and knelt. He was not a proud man. He knew when he was in the presence of something greater than himself. "You saved my daughter," the queen said. Her voice was soft, but it filled the entire room. "I did." You were injured. 14 wounds. You lost blood that your primitive body cannot easily replace. Our physicians say you should have died before you reached the outpost. You should have died 3 more times after that. Do-hyun shrugged. It hurt to shrug. He did it anyway. Humans are stubborn, so I am learning. The queen leaned forward. Why did you save her? She needed help. That is not an answer. You had nothing to gain. Your species has no alliance with us. We have given humanity nothing. Many of my people think humans are barely more than animals. Why would you risk your short life for one of us? The court was silent. Everyone was watching. Do-hyun could feel their attention like heat on his skin. He thought about lying. He thought about making up some clever reason that would make sense to these ancient, calculating beings. But he was tired, and he hurt, and he had never been good at lying anyway. She needed help, he said again. That was enough. The silence stretched. Do-hyun could hear his own heartbeat. The queen stood. She walked down from her throne, step by slow step, until she stood right in front of him. She was taller than him by almost a head. She smelled like cold flowers and old starlight. I can sense lies, she said quietly. I can taste them in the air. I can hear them in the beating of hearts. I have caught 10,000 liars in my 800 years. She tilted her head, studying him like he was a strange insect. You are not lying. You truly believe what you say. You risked everything, for nothing, simply because someone needed help. Yes, that is either very stupid or very noble. Perhaps both. Probably. Do-hyun agreed. Something flickered in the queen's eyes. It might have been amusement. It might have been something else. You have created a problem, human. Among my people, what you did creates a debt. A life debt. You saved the life of my youngest daughter. By our laws, by our honor, this debt must be repaid. It cannot be ignored. I do not want anything, Do-hyun said. Just let me go back to my ship. I will disappear. You will never see me again. That is not possible. The queen returned to her throne. The debt exists whether you want it or not. And until I determine how to balance what you are owed, you will remain here. Do-hyun felt the cold spread through his body. I do not understand. You are not being punished, human. You are being kept. You saved my daughter. You bled for her. You nearly died. This creates an obligation that I cannot ignore. Until the debt is paid, you belong to the Empire. I did not ask for a debt. No, you asked for nothing. You expected nothing. The queen's silver eyes were unreadable. That is what makes this so difficult. That is what makes you so dangerous. She waved her hand. Guards stepped forward. Take him to the guest quarters. Give him everything he needs. But he does not leave the palace. He does not contact anyone. He does not go anywhere without permission. Do-hyun was pulled to his feet. The chains on his wrists felt heavier than before. You are not a prisoner, the queen said as he was led away. But you are not free either. Welcome to the Valorian Empire, Kang Do-hyun. I hope you learn to enjoy it. The doors closed behind him. And somewhere deep in his chest, Do-hyun felt a cage close around his heart. The room they gave Do-hyun was bigger than any house he had ever lived in on Earth. The bed was soft as clouds. The food was better than anything he had ever tasted. Servants came every day to ask if he needed anything, but the doors were always locked. The windows did not open, and every time he asked to leave, the answer was always the same. Not yet. The queen has not decided. Weeks passed. Do-hyun began to feel like a bird in a golden cage. The cage was beautiful. The cage was comfortable. But it was still a cage. He exercised every day to keep himself from going crazy. He did push-ups until his arms shook. He ran in circles around his room until he could not breathe. He practiced fighting moves against shadows, imagining enemies that were not there. The Valorians watched him through hidden cameras. He knew they were there. He did not care. Princess Yuna came to visit him for the first time on the 20th day. She was different from what he remembered. In the burning shuttle, she had been broken and bleeding. Now she was whole again, dressed in clothes that shimmered like living water. Her hair was long and dark, with streaks of silver running through it. Her eyes were the same color as the deep sea. "You look better," Dayun said. "So do you." She smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise. "May I come in?" "It is not really my room. I cannot stop you." She came in anyway and sat on a chair near the window. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Do-hyun looked back. He had learned long ago that sometimes silence said more than words. "I wanted to thank you," Yuna said finally. "Properly. Not just for saving my life, but for staying. I know you do not want to be here. You are not wrong. My mother is complicated. She does not understand humans. She has lived for so long that she thinks she understands everything. But you confuse her. I have never seen anyone confuse her before." Do-hyun sat on the edge of his bed. "What is there to be confused about? I saved you. That is all. There is no trick. No hidden plan. That is exactly what confuses her." Yuna leaned forward. "Among my people, everything is a calculation. Every action has a purpose. Every gift comes with expectations. Nothing is ever truly free." "That sounds exhausting." Yuna laughed. It was a surprising sound, bright and real. "It is. Very exhausting." She grew serious again. "But you risked your life for someone you did not know. Someone who was not even your own species. And you wanted nothing in return. My mother does not know how to process that. Maybe she is thinking too hard about it. Maybe. Or maybe humans are just very strange." Do-hyun smiled for the first time in weeks. "We are definitely strange. I will give you that." Yuna began to visit every day after that. She asked him about Earth, about human food, human music, human stories. She wanted to know about his childhood, his family, his life before he became a soldier. Do-hyun found himself talking more than he had in years. He told her about the small town where he grew up, about his mother, who died when he was young, about his father, who worked too hard and loved too quietly, about the day he decided to leave Earth and never go back. "Why did you leave?" Yuna asked one evening. The light outside was turning gold, falling through the crystal walls like honey. "Because I did not fit. On Earth, everyone had a place. A job, a family, a purpose. I never found mine. So I went looking for it somewhere else." "Did you find it?" Do-hyun thought about the question. He thought about the burning shuttle, about carrying Yuna through smoke and fire, about the moment when he thought he was going to die and realized he was okay with it, because at least he was dying for something that mattered. "Maybe," he said. "I am not sure yet." Meanwhile, someone else was watching. Commander Taiwan was the head of the Royal Guard. He was old, even by Valorian standards. He had served 3 queens and killed more enemies than he could count. And he did not trust Kang Do-hyun. "There must be a reason," he said to his officers. "No species acts without self-interest. Find his angle. Find what he really wants." His officers searched. They dug into every record they could find about Do-hyun. They tracked his movements across the galaxy. They interviewed people who had worked with him, people who had fought beside him, people who had tried to kill him. They found a man who had walked away from a military career because he refused to leave civilians behind. They found a mercenary who had, again and again, taken jobs that paid little because they involved protecting people who could not protect themselves. They found a human who had bled for strangers across a dozen systems, sometimes for money, often for nothing at all. One read the reports in silence. "This does not make sense," he said. "Every creature has a price. Every being has something they want." Perhaps, one of his officers said carefully, his price is simply helping others. Perhaps that is what he wants. Taiwan stared at her. "That is ridiculous, is it? We have watched him for weeks. He asks for nothing. He complains about nothing except being kept here against his will. He spends his days exercising, reading, and talking to the princess. He has shown no interest in our technology, our secrets, our wealth, or our power. Then what does he want?" The officer hesitated. "I think he wants to be free, and he wants to keep saving people. That seems to be all." Taiwan sat in the dark for a long time after she left. He had spent his whole life understanding enemies, understanding threats, understanding the calculations that drove every action. He did not know how to understand a man who asked for nothing, and that, he realized, was the most dangerous thing of all. The Cathari did not forget. They did not forgive. Kang Do-yun had killed 17 of their raiders. He had destroyed 4 of their ships. He had taken their prize, the Valorian princess they had spent months planning to capture. Among the Cathari, such an insult demanded blood. They sent their best assassin. His name was not important. What mattered was that he had never failed. He had killed senators and generals, kings and queens. He had become invisible, move without sound, strike without warning. He had been promised 3 times his normal fee if he brought back the human's head. Getting into the palace was the hardest part. The Valorians had strong security, but the assassin was patient. He waited for weeks, watching the patterns, learning the weaknesses. When the time came, he slipped through a gap in the shields during a ceremonial gathering. The gathering was in the Great Hall. Hundreds of Valorians filled the space, dressed in their finest clothes. Lights floated in the air like captured stars. Music played from somewhere unseen. Du-Hyen was there. The queen had ordered him to attend. She wanted to show him off, he thought. The strange human who had saved her daughter. A curiosity. A trophy. He stood near a wall, watching the Valorians dance and talk and laugh. He felt out of place in his simple clothes, surrounded by beings who had lived longer than human history. Princess Yuna found him there. "You look uncomfortable," she said. "I am uncomfortable. Everyone keeps staring at me. They are curious. Humans are rare here. Most of them have never seen one before. I feel like an animal in a zoo." Yuna touched his arm. It was a small gesture, quick and light. But Do-yun felt it all the way down to his bones. "Come," she said. "Dance with me. I do not know your dances. Then I will teach you." She led him onto the floor. The other dancers moved aside, making room. Do-yun could feel their eyes on him, their whispers following him like shadows. Yuna showed him where to put his hands, how to move his feet. The dance was slower than human dances, more flowing. It felt like moving through water. "You are not so bad," Yuna said. "For a human." "Thank you." "I think." She laughed, and for a moment, Do-hyun forgot where he was. He forgot the staring eyes and the whispers. He forgot that he was a prisoner. There was only the music and the lights and the princess in his arms. The assassin watched from the shadows. He had planned to kill the human quickly and escape. But now the princess was there, close to the target, and an idea began to form. Why just kill the human? Why not hurt the Valorians even more? He moved closer, slipping between the dancers like smoke. His blade was already in his hand. It was coated with poison, the kind that killed slowly and painfully. One cup would be enough. He was 3 steps away when Do-yoon felt something wrong. It was not sight. It was not sound. It was something deeper, something that came from years of fighting and surviving. A feeling in his gut that screamed danger. He turned his head and saw the assassin. Saw the blade. Saw the direction it was pointing. Not at him. At Yuna. Do-yoon did not think. There was no time to think. He moved on pure instinct, spinning Yuna behind him and stepping into the path of the blade. The knife went into his chest, just below his heart. The pain was incredible, worse than anything he had felt before. He could feel the poison already spreading, burning through his veins like liquid fire. But he did not fall. Not yet. He grabbed the assassin's wrist with both hands and twisted. The bone broke with a sound like snapping wood. The assassin screamed. Guards were running toward them now, shouting in Valorian. Do-yoon pulled the knife out of his own chest and shoved it into the assassin's throat. Then he fell. The world went dark around the edges. He could hear Yuna screaming his name. He could feel hands pressing on his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Red blood spread across the white marble floor. Human blood, bright and wrong in this place of silver and crystal. "Do not die," Yuna was saying. Her voice sounded far away. "Please, please, do not die." Do-han wanted to tell her that it was okay, that he had made his choice, that he would do it again, 1,000 times, if it meant keeping her safe. But the darkness was too strong. It pulled him down to nothing. He was in surgery for 18 hours. The Valorian physicians worked through the night, fighting the poison, fixing his broken body. They had never operated on a human before. They did not know how his organs fit together, how his blood worked, what would kill him and what would save him. But they learned. Quickly, desperately, his heart stopped twice on the table. Twice. They brought him back. Queen Sora stood outside the surgery room the entire time. She did not speak. She did not move. She simply watched through the window as strangers fought to save the life of a man she had kept prisoner for months. Commander Taiwan stood beside her. "He knew," Taiwan said quietly. "He saw the blade coming for the princess. He had time to move aside. Instead, he stepped in front of it. Yes, he is dying for her. Again. For a second time, he has chosen her life over his own. There is no scheme here, my queen. No hidden agenda. There is only—" He shook his head. Him. Queen Sora said nothing for a long time. She watched the physicians work. She watched Do-han's blood drip onto the floor. She watched the monitors that showed his heartbeat, fragile and uneven. "I have lived for over 800 years, she said finally. "I have seen heroes and villains. I have seen great sacrifices and terrible betrayals. I thought I understood what moved people, what drove them." She pressed her hand against the glass. "I was wrong." When Do-yoon finally woke, 3 days later, the first thing he saw was the queen sitting beside his bed. "You are the most troublesome creature I have ever met," she said. "Sorry," he managed. His voice was barely a whisper. "Do not apologize. You have done nothing wrong. That is exactly the problem." She leaned forward. Her silver eyes were softer than he had ever seen them. "You keep saving my daughter. You keep bleeding for her. You keep making it impossible for me to repay what I owe you." Do-hyun closed his eyes. He was so tired. "I did not ask for any debt." "No, you asked for nothing. You expected nothing. You simply acted because acting was right." The queen's voice cracked, just barely. "Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious?" Do-yoon did not answer. He was already falling back in the darkness, but just before sleep took him, he felt something press against his forehead. It might have been a hand. It might have been lips, and he heard the queen whisper, so softly he almost missed it. "Thank you." The Valorian High Council met in a chamber that had stood for 10,000 years. The walls were covered with the names of every important decision ever made within them. Wars declared, treaties signed, empires built and destroyed. Today, they would decide the fate of one human. Do-hyun stood in the center of the chamber, still weak from his wounds. He should have been in bed. The physicians had told him so many times. But the queen had asked him to come, and somehow he could not say no. The council members sat in a circle around him. 12 of them, each one older than anything Do-hyun could imagine. They looked at him with eyes that had seen stars born and die. "We are here to resolve the matter of the human called Kang Do-hyun," the head counselor announced. "He has created a life debt of unprecedented size. He has saved Princess Yuna twice, nearly dying both times. By our law, this debt must be addressed." The counselor looked at his notes. There are only 3 ways to balance a life debt of this magnitude. First, the debtor can be executed. This is not possible, as the human is the creditor, not the debtor. Second, the creditor can enter eternal service to the crown. Third, the creditor can be elevated to nobility. Whispers ran through the chamber. The counselor raised his hand for silence. Humans cannot hold Valorian titles. It has never been done in our history. The second option remains. We recommend that Kang Do-hyun enter service to the Empire for the remainder of his natural life. More whispers. Some of the counselors nodded. It seemed like a fair solution. A clean solution. But Queen Sora stood from her throne. The chamber went silent. Queens did not usually speak at these proceedings. They observed. They approved or rejected. They did not participate. "I wish to address the council," Sora said. The head counselor bowed. "Of course, Your Majesty." Sora walked down from her throne. Her footsteps echoed in the ancient chamber. She stopped beside Do-hyun and turned to face her council. "For 800 years, I have ruled this empire. I have watched species rise and fall. I have seen civilizations built on power, on fear, on careful planning. And I have watched them all crumble eventually. Nothing lasts forever." She paused. Her silver eye swept across the council. Humans have been among the stars for barely 2 centuries. They are young. They are weak. They die so quickly that we barely learn their names before they are gone. Many of us see them as insignificant, barely worth noticing. She looked at Do-hyun. He looked back. He was not afraid. He was too tired to be afraid. But this one human has shown me something I've forgotten. Courage is not about living a long time. It is not about being strong or smart or powerful. Courage is choosing to act when acting serves no purpose for yourself. She turned back to the council. Kang Do-hyun did not save my daughter because he wanted something. He saved her because she needed saving. He bled for her because she was in danger. There was no calculation. There was no expectation of reward. There was only a choice, made in a moment, to risk everything for a stranger. The chamber was absolutely silent. No one dared to breathe. Our law says the debt must be balanced. But how do you balance something that was never a transaction? How do you repay someone who never wanted payment? The answer is simple. You cannot. She stepped closer to Do-hyun. I cannot make you Valorian. I cannot give you centuries of life. I cannot change what you are. But I can give you what you wanted from the beginning. What you have wanted all along. She reached out and, with her own hands, removed ceremonial chains from his wrists. I give you your freedom, Kang Do-hyun. True freedom. You may go wherever you wish. Do whatever you wish. Your ship has been repaired and supplied. The stars are yours again. Dawn stared at her. He did not know what to say. But know this, Sora continued. Freedom does not mean goodbye. You will always have a place here. In this palace. In this empire. In my family. The Valorians do not forget those who have bled for us. And we do not abandon our friends. She stepped back and looked at the council. There is one more thing. From this day forward, let it be known that humanity has proven itself. One human, alone, showed courage that most of our own people would not have shown. If one human can do this, then perhaps we have been wrong about them. Perhaps they deserve our respect. She raised her voice so it filled every corner of the chamber. Let the word go out to every corner of the galaxy. Humanity is under the protection of the Valorian Empire. Any who harm them will answer to us. The council erupted. Some cheered. Some protested. But Sora simply walked back to her throne, and slowly, the noise faded. Dalian stood alone in the center of the chamber. His chains were gone. The doors were open. For the first time in months, he was free. But he did not run for the exit. Instead, he walked to where Princess Yuna sat among the court. She was crying silver tears. They ran down her face like tiny rivers of starlight. I might come back sometimes, he said, to visit. She laughed through her tears. You better. He smiled at her. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Queen Sora's voice followed him. Kang-do Yun. He stopped and turned. What you did will not be forgotten. Not in 100 years. Not in 1,000. When humans are old and powerful and spread across the galaxy, they will look back at this moment. They will remember that it started with one man who was willing to bleed for strangers. Dahan thought about that. He thought about all the humans who would come after him. All the doors that might open because of what he had done. I was just doing what felt right, he said. The queen smiled. It was the first time he had ever seen her truly smile. I know, she said. That is exactly the point. Do-hyun walked out of the chamber, out of the palace, and back to his ship. It was waiting for him, repaired and refueled, with supplies to last for months. He climbed into the pilot's seat and looked at the stars. The galaxy was big, full of dangers, full of people who needed help. He fired up the engines and flew into the black. Behind him, the Valorian Empire watched him go. And for the first time in centuries, they looked at the stars and wondered what other surprises humanity might hold. Because if one human could change everything, then maybe humans were worth paying attention to after all.